everyone, welcome back to my channel. I want to start by saying thank you so much for all of the support I've gotten on my recent videos. It's been so amazing to put these videos out there and get people commenting and liking and subscribing to my channel. So I want to say thank you so much. And if you're here and you like my videos, please subscribe. I'd love to have you along for the ride. Today I'm going to be making and preserving onions 3 different ways. I'm going to be making a red onion marmalade. I'm going to be making a kind of a sauteed or caramelized onion chutney with fig, and then I'm going to be making a pickled red onion. And I want to say one thing at the beginning. So I'm going to be the last 2 I mentioned, so the caramelized onions and the pickles. I'm just going to preserve them in the freezer or in the refrigerator. And the reason for this is the pickles pickled onions I'm going to use for a recipe later in the week. And I'm not going to make a huge batch. I'm just going to make 1 jar for us to eat, with our food this week. And the caramelized onion kind of relish, caramelized onion jam that I'm going to make, I could not find a USDA approved recipe with caramelized onions anywhere. If you all can find one, if you have one that's USDA approved, please put it down in the comments. I would love to see that. But I did tons of research yesterday and I could not find a USDA approved method anywhere. So I'm still trying to find that. I would love to be able to can caramelized onions. I know there are a lot of people on YouTube who have. But for me and my family, if I can't find a recipe that isn't either Ball or USDA approved, I just don't feel comfortable personally, putting that on my pantry shelf. So I think whatever is right for your family is right for your family, but for me, making something that is, there isn't a approved safe recipe for, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. So I'm going to show you some other ways to make some onion preserves and to keep them for a long term. So the reason I got inspired to do this is I found a really great deal on organic onions from my local supermarket. So I have a whole bunch of onions, and I'm going to start with doing the quick red onion marmalade recipe, which is in my favorite canning book, the Ball Book of Home Preserving. I love this book. It's really the only canning cookbook really that that you would need, and there aren't very many competitors as far as I can tell. I looked for some other ones that might have some other recipes, and really this is the best one as far as I can tell. So that's the first recipe we're going to make, but I'm actually going to start by peeling and chopping up all of my white onions, which I'm going to caramelize. Now, I don't really want to sit here and babysit my stove for 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to caramelize them in my slow cooker, which is actually my Instant Pot. So this is my Instant Pot liner, and I'm just going to chop up all my onions and put them in my Instant Pot, and I'm going to let them slow cook probably overnight so that they're really nice and jammy and caramelized, just so I don't have to go through the trouble of actually sitting here and babysitting my stove. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to peel and chop my onions, and I'm also going to chop my onions using this little chopper guy that I found at Goodwill. So it's really great for like large batches. It is a huge pain to clean, so I only use it when I have like a ton of stuff that I need to chop up. So I'm going to chop a bunch of these onions and get them into my slow cooker to cook overnight. And then I'm going to come back to you when I start on my quick red onion marmalade, which I'm going to make today. And then I'll actually finish the caramelized onions tomorrow. For my white onions, I'm going to have 2 containers. I'm going to have this bag, which I'm going to put all of my good scraps that I'm going to keep to make stock. And stay tuned, I'm going to have a video on that soon. And then any of the kind of not so nice bits, like this onion that's gone bad, is just going to go in my orange bowl, and that's going to go into my compost. So I'm going to chop up. I'm just going to start peeling and chopping up these onions. and I'll see you all later when that's done. Now that I've got all of my white onions into my pot here and they are slow cooking down, I'm going to start preparing for my other two recipes. So my quick red onion marmalade that's from my Ball cookbook, and then also a pickled red onion that I've adapted from the Ottolenghi flavor cookbook. So this is just kind of my version. In my jar, my pickled onions, I've started with about 5 grams of hibiscus flowers. These are just dried hibiscus flowers. And they add like a really nice kind of floral taste to the onions, which I really like. And they also have like this beautiful pink color. And it makes the onions just look absolutely beautiful. So I have some hibiscus flowers in there, and you can use like hibiscus tea bags. I just have the actual flowers I got as a gift a while ago, so I find I really like this. And the other thing I put into that is some orange zest. I really like the hibiscus, the orange, and the onion. I just think it makes a really nice combination. So I have about 5 grams of hibiscus. I'm going to use the stripped zest of this whole orange minus the 2 teaspoons of grated zest I need for the marmalade. And then I'm going to just thinly slice some red onion. And I'm going to use a little mandolin that I have here, and I'm going to be using a cut-resistant glove. So not a cut-proof glove, so you still have to be really careful, but I've left kind of the ends of the onion on here, so I've got something to more easily grab onto. So I'm going to start by preparing this orange. I'm going to grate, I've got my fine microplane here. I'm going to grate about 2 teaspoons of orange zest, which I'm going to use for my marmalade. Probably about half this orange. Should be about right. And then I'm just going to leave it kind of tucked in there in the zester. And then I'm going to take kind of longer strips here for my pickled onions. Set this aside. This orange we'll just eat later. So, oh, and before I did that, I scrubbed this orange really, really well with soap just to get any, sometimes, this is organic, but sometimes they put like wax over it to try and preserve them. So I just gave it a really good scrub under really hot water. The next thing I'm going to do is slice up my onions really finely. So I'm going to take my slicer. Let's see, I'm going to start with one and just see how thick that is. It's a little too thin. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Those are pretty good. When I get toward the end, I'm going to use my guard to make sure I don't cut myself. It is very, very painful to cut yourself on these. They're extremely sharp. So I'm just going to trim off the little end bits. Let me give this guy one more slice. There we go. Nice and easy. And I have a beautiful, even, very thin slices of red onion, which I'm just going to put into my jar. And I'm going to keep slicing the rest of these. And then I'm going to get my other ingredients ready for my onion marmalade. So I'm going to chop up some cranberries and measure out all of my ingredients so I have everything ready to put in the pot. So I'm just going to keep slicing away, and I will meet you all back when we're ready to start cooking our marmalade. Hi everyone, I finished prepping my onions. I filled my jar here. You can see I've got the hibiscus on the bottom along with some orange zest, just strips of the orange zest. And I filled the jar to the top with onions, about 2 cups of onions, and then I put in 2 tablespoons of sugar, and I just filled it to the top with white vinegar. You can use white wine vinegar. It's a little bit less astringent, but I have regular vinegar on hand. And no need to worry about covering this fully. This is not a canning recipe. I'm just going to put a lid on this and put it in my refrigerator so that we can enjoy these lovely pickled onions on tacos tomorrow. So I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to get working on my marmalade. So here is my pot. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of onions. And you can see right here, I actually have a pot of hot water, and I put my jars in there. So I'm going to be using these little 8-ounce jelly jars, and they're really small little jars, and you'll see those in a little bit. But those, I'm going to put my actual marmalade in, and I have a pot of boiling water, and I have those just heating up in there. And so now that it's boiling, I've just turned that off, and we'll use that in a little bit. So here we've got my onions. I've got 1.5 cups of onions, and to that I'm going to add 1/2 cup of finely chopped dried cranberries, right there, and 1/4 cup of lightly packed brown sugar, and 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. Now I'm just going to heat that up on medium heat until the onions are translucent. It should take about 10 minutes. So now that my onions are beautiful and starting to get translucent, I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredients minus the sugar. So what the recipe calls for is 3 cups of apple juice, unsweetened apple juice, along with 6 tablespoons of pectin. So I actually have some apple jelly, and you can kind of see it didn't quite set up. It set up sort of, but not, not fully. So it's still liquid. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is actually to use this apple jelly, and I'm going to have the pectin, then have the sugar. Because this was an apple jelly that had sugar in it. So I'm going to attempt to do that, and we'll see if it passes the cold plate test. And if not, we'll add the rest of the sugar. So I'm going to add in my 3 cups of kind of half set apple jelly. Whisk in 3 tablespoons of just regular pectin. This is not the low sugar kind. And I'm going to whisk it in after each tablespoon, just to make sure that I get it all incorporated and it doesn't get kind of clumpy. Now that we have all of our pectin in there, I'm going to turn this up to high, keep a very close eye on it, and once it starts to boil, I am going to add in the sugar, and then we're going to boil it hard for 1 minute. So we're going to boil it basically until you can't stir away the boil. And you'll see, if you haven't seen what that looks like before, you'll see what it looks like. Basically, you try and stir the mixture, and it just keeps a rolling boil even while you're stirring. All right, we've made it to the hard boil stage. Didn't take too long, probably only about 5 minutes. And you can see as I'm stirring, that boil continues. It's not, I can't stir it away. So I'm going to add in, the recipe is for 4 cups of sugar. I'm just going to do 2 because my apple sauce was sweetened. And the recipe is for unsweetened applesauce, so, or apple juice rather. So I'm going to add in that, and then we're going to mix. And once this comes back up to a boil, it'll stop boiling because the sugar causes the boiling point to increase. And I'm going to mix this really well. And then once it comes back up to a boil, we will boil it hard for 1 minute. So I'm going to stir this constantly as it comes back up to temperature. You see it's turned a lovely kind of dark, like wine color. While I'm here, I'm going to turn up my pot over here. You can see I have my little 8-ounce jelly jars in there. Alright, we're back up to a boil I can't stir away, so I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. Alright, 1 minute's gone off, and I'm going to do the cold plate test. So I got a plate out of the freezer. I'm just going to pour a little bit of our jam on there. And I'm going to put it back in the freezer for a couple minutes. And actually, I think it may already be setting up. You'll be able to see if it's set up properly. You'll be able to scrape your finger through the middle like that. So that's great. That means my jam has set. We've passed the cold plate test. Now, in this case, if it didn't pass, then I would be adding another cup of sugar. But since we've passed the cold plate test, I'm free to move on to canning. So you can see that my jars here have come up to temperature. And I don't need to sterilize them, they just need to be hot. This is a hot pack method, so it means that my jars and my jam and the water that they're going to go in all need to be hot. So I'm going to grab these out. Now I'm just going to fill these nice hot jars with my hot jam mixture. Oh. I need to leave a little bit more headspace than that. You need a 1/4 inch of headspace. All right. So now I'm going to do a few things. First thing I'm going to do is I've got a wet towel, and I'm just going to, the first thing I'm going to do is debubble all these. So I'm just going to take my little tool, and if you're new to canning, you want to make sure that you have a 1/4 inch headspace on these, and so this little side of the tool tells you whether you've got a 1/4 inch. So I think I'm good on all these. Actually, that one's a little shy. I'll just put a little bit more in there. Should be good. Yep. And then I'm going to debubble all of these. Just make sure there aren't any bubbles caught down in the bottom there. Get this rogue onion back in. And then I'm going to wipe the rims really well, because any jam on the rims can prevent it from sealing. Just going to go back through one more time. And while I'm doing this, I'm just checking the rims to make sure there aren't any nicks. These are new jars. I've never used these ones before, so there shouldn't be, but just in case there's like some kind of manufacturer's issue, I'm just going to run my finger around, double check that there are no nicks. And then I'm going to cover these and tighten them fingertip tight and put them in my boiling water bath. Oh, before I put them in that bath, what I need to do is I put a little towel on the bottom so that the jars don't rattle against the bottom of the pot. And that could cause them to crack. I've gotten all of my jars into my boiling water. I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to let these process for 15 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to get some more jars and fill up the next batch. Alright, my timer's gone off, and we're ready to take out our first batch of little jars. Our little jam jars, all processed. The other batch has 5 more minutes. I love that sound. So I'm going to let these cool completely, and then tomorrow morning I will come back to you all to finish up our caramelized onion and fig chutney. So you can see our onions pretty much finished caramelizing, and it's late tonight, so I'm going to finish that tomorrow. So I will check in with you all tomorrow. Hi everyone, it's the next morning, and I am getting back to my onion preserving project. So I wanted to show you guys, this is how the jam turned out. I think it's beautiful. It's such a gorgeous kind of rosy color. I think it turned out really well. And I'm going to check, it's fully cooled, and I'm going to check and make sure that it's sealed. So the way to do that is to take the ring off, and the first thing you can do is just tap. And you can hear that noise, and when you get used to doing a lot of canning, you'll start recognizing that this noise means it's sealed. The real way to check is to grab the lid of the jar just by the edge and hold it. And if the jar can be held up by the weight of the lid, then you know you have a good seal. So I've just labeled my my jam, and I'm going to store these with the rest of my canned goods with the ring off. And the reason that you do that is 2 reasons. One, in some cases, if you live in a very humid area, the ring can actually rust and cause rust on the lid, which could cause the seal to fail. And the other thing is, if you have the ring tightened down, you might not be able to tell that the seal on your jam has failed. So if your seal fails, it means that that is no longer safe to eat. So I just store these, no ring, separately. And I wanted to show you, I brought out, this is some apple butter that's been sitting in my refrigerator that we've been eating on toast, and I wanted to show you the difference between the sound. So this is a sealed jar. You see it makes a very tinny noise. And this jar is, you can see it's open. This is what we've been, I had this for breakfast this morning. And you can hear it makes like a much kind of more bouncy noise. And also, maybe you can see that the lid, this button has popped up. So those two things tell you this is not sealed. I keep this in my refrigerator. This one is sealed and safe to store long term. So I'm going to finish up my last onion preservation project. So I finished 2. I have my pickled onions in the refrigerator. I have my onion marmalade, which I'm going to put in my pantry. And my last thing is my caramelized onions. So I'm going to make 2 products with these. Here are my caramelized onions. I just took them out of my slow cooker yesterday and put them into these jars and put it in the refrigerator overnight. I'm going to do 2 things. One, I'm going to make a caramelized onion, fig, and balsamic chutney. And then the other thing I'm going to make is I'm just going to freeze any remainder of the caramelized onions in a muffin tin. And muffin tins are usually the normal sized ones, or like cupcake tins. The volume of one of the little tins is half a cup. So it makes it really easy to portion this out, freeze it, and then I cake the little pucks and put them in a plastic bag. And then I have them for whatever recipe I need them. And I do this for all sorts of things. I do it for applesauce if I'm adding applesauce. I do it for aquafaba if you are looking for a great egg white replacement. Aquafaba is a good one, and it's just the liquid out of a chickpea. When you cook chickpeas, it's the liquid that's left over. And that you can freeze like this too, and it makes little half cup pucks, which are really easy to add to recipes. So that's what my plan is. And I'm going to start with my figs. So these are the figs that I got off of my fig tree. I have 2 fig trees in my yard, but only one of them actually produces figs, which I'm not really sure. Hopefully this year I'll figure out how to get the other one producing. But you can see I have kind of a mixture of beautiful purple figs and then ones that are more green. And that was because my fig tree, because we moved into this house kind of late in the season and I did not know how to take care of my fig tree, it ripened quite late in the season. So I pulled the rest of these figs off the tree when they were still green. And because of that, I read online that they can be quite bitter. And one of the ways to get rid of that bitterness is to boil the green figs. So I just have a pot on my stove where I'm going to pick out kind of the most green figs out of here. Some of them are beautiful and ripe. And I don't need to do this, but others are really green and hard. I'll show you an example. So let's see, like this one. Whoop. You can see they're frozen, but it's very green. And when I pulled it off of the tree, it was quite firm. Versus you can see this one, it's beautiful. It's got kind of that purple color, and you can just tell by looking at that. This is a nice, even though it's frozen solid, this is a nice ripe fig. So I'm going to pick out the ones out of here that are kind of more hard and green, and I'm going to boil them to soften them up and get kind of that more vegetable flavor out. And then I'm going to mix these together with some of my caramelized onions and some balsamic vinegar. And again, this is not a canning recipe. I looked online, I couldn't find a recipe specifically for canning onion jam that wasn't this ball recipe that I used with the red onions. So, or to can specifically caramelized onions. So this I'm going to put into jars and put in my freezer, and I will show you all that as well. Okay, I've drained and squeezed out my figs. So I boiled them for 10 minutes. I squeezed all of the water out of them, and then I repeated that one more time. So now I'm going to put all of my kind of processed green figs into my pot along with my rest of my frozen purple ones. And I have a little bit of apple. I had these 2 apples that were really, really small, and I just had them in the freezer, and I figured I'm going to throw them in here. I think they're going to add a little extra sweetness and be really great. So I'm going to cook this for a while, probably using a potato masher, and then, actually, you know what I think I'll do is I'll cook them for a little bit, and then I'm going to use my immersion blender just to kind of blend this down to a kind of chunky consistency. And here I'm just removing any of the little stem bits that I missed when I was picking them. You can see some of them are so beautifully ripe, just beautiful on the inside. Just making sure I get all of the little extra bits out. That looks good. So I'm just going to cook these down, and then I'm going to come in and blitz them, and then I'm going to add onions and balsamic vinegar and maybe a few other little things, and then I will put these in jars to enjoy. Now that my figs have started to cook down a little bit, I'm going to add in my balsamic and some lemon juice. So I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and let's see, I only have a little bit of balsamic left, so we'll see how much I have. Thinking about between 1/4 and 1/2 cup. Perfect. I have just shy of 1/2 cup. You guys probably can't see that very well, but just shy of 1/2 cup of balsamic. And now I'm gonna, you can hear my dog and my cat in the background. I'm just gonna stir this, and I'm gonna let this cook for probably about 25 to 30 minutes until the figs are fully broken down, completely soft, and then I'm going to get my immersion blender and blitz this all up so that it's nice and pureed. Alright, we've made it to the home stretch with our fig jam. I'm just going to turn this off the heat. It's cooked for about 30 minutes, and I'm pretty sure it's ready because you can see there's not very much liquid left in the bottom, and I think it's ready to kind of grind it all up. So I've got my immersion blender. Obviously, if you don't have an immersion blender, you could just pour this into a regular blender. But it's easier. This is, just throw this in the dishwasher. So I'm just going to blitz this up, and then I'm going to add in my onions. And one other thing I forgot to mention, I did this in a stainless steel pot, not a non-stick. And the reason I did that is because I knew I was going to be using my immersion blender, and you really don't want to be using a metal instrument, so like the edges of this metal immersion blender, on a non-stick pot, or it is going to destroy your the non-stick surface. So I'm going to add in my onions I made yesterday. I'm just going to heat these back up a little bit. I don't need to worry about what temperature this all is, because I'm not going to be canning this. I'm just going to freeze it. But I want to get it warm so I can know kind of what it's going to taste like when I serve, because I think I'm going to use this for things like burgers and things like that. So I would prefer to serve it warm, I think. So I'm going to add some pepper and some salt. I didn't really season the onions at all yesterday, so. Oop. My husband and I like a lot of pepper in things. salt. And we'll see how it tastes. It smells amazing. I wish you all could smell it. All right, clean spoon. Let's give this a taste. That's really good. It's sweet but very tart from the vinegar and the. I'm just gonna add a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper. This would be great to use as an alternative for like ketchup on meatloaf, or for burgers, or as just a nice condiment. All right, get another clean spoon. I got a nice big piece of fig in that bite. Oh, really good. So, next thing I'm going to do is I am going to portion this and freeze it. And I'm going to do I'm not sure yet. I think I'm going to do some one way and some another. So, I have these little jars, and actually, what they once were, I'll show you. I buy this. It's called Better Than Bouillon. And I love these jars. The jars it comes in are so nice. They're perfectly sized. And every time I buy one of those, I save the jar. And I have for the past probably 4 or 5 years. So I've got like 10 of these. And maybe even more, actually. Maybe 15. And I just keep these jars and I keep refilling them. So like this one, you can see I put chickpea flour in it at one point when I had extra. And sometimes the labels can get hard to get off. You can boil them off, but I don't really care. What else? I think I had one here that I froze cilantro sauce in. So these are just really handy little jars. I really like them. It's a great way to reuse what you already have. And obviously I don't use these for canning. They do have a sealing lid, but I don't recan in these. I just use these, and I usually put them in the freezer. And they freeze really well. It's a nice thick glass, and I have never had one crack. So I think what I'm going to do is half and half. So I'm going to get out my muffin pan, and I don't usually grease. I don't bother greasing it. Let me get set up over here, actually. Alright, so I'm going to do, I think, this is another different jar from some condiment I purchased, but again, perfect jar to reuse. And I'm just going to fill probably 3 or 4 of these little ones. I'm going to try not to overfill them because I'm going to put them in the freezer. I want to make sure that they're not overfilled, or they will crack. So I filled it up most of the way, not all the way to the top. And that should be just fine. I find that these kind of solids don't expand quite as much as liquids do. So I don't need to worry so much about them cracking in the freezer. And then with these, I'll either add a little label on them or I'll just write in Sharpie on the side of the jar. And I'll just write on the side of the jar or on the top, and that's ready to go. So for the rest of these, I'm going to add them into my little muffin tray. And as I said, these are generally about a half a cup. It's a little, tiny bit shy of a half a cup, but it's pretty close. So I'm just going to fill these up, and then I'm going to put them in the freezer. And then I probably won't videotape this because I'll do it tomorrow, but once these are frozen solid, what you can do is you can either leave them on the counter for like 10 minutes just for the edges to thaw, or if you don't want to risk the rest of them getting a little soft and or you want it to go a little faster, you can just dip them in hot water so that the hot water gets on the underside of the tin, and then they'll just pop out. I've never had an issue where things like this have stuck, so I don't bother ever greasing these. I'm going to fill up the rest of my slots here with my just caramelized onions that I didn't mix fig into or balsamic. So these are just plain caramelized onions. And these will be really great to just throw into a recipe. These are all just the leftovers from... I cooked yesterday, I think, about 8 pounds of onions. And all I did was I just chopped them up, tossed them in my Instant Pot with about half a stick of vegan butter, and let them cook down. And I was using the Instant Pot as a slow cooker. I didn't use the Instant Pot setting. Thank you all so much for joining me today and watching my video. So today I finished making my pickled onions. These are really great on salad, on tacos, on whatever you want. These are absolutely beautiful. I mean, look at them. The color from the hibiscus really permeates the entire jar and just makes it such a beautiful pink, which I just really love. I think it looks so gorgeous, especially in the winter, to have a little bit of extra color and just a bright zingy flavor for your food. Here's our onion jam. This is the one that I canned and is going to go in my pantry. This is just, it's cold, it goes in my refrigerator. This one's for my pantry. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to giving this as parties, as gifts, and serving it at parties, maybe even for the upcoming Super Bowl. And then the last thing I made is my fig, onion, and balsamic. This is also just going to go in the fridge or the freezer, and I think this is also going to be really great on burgers or maybe on brats or whatever you're making for spring barbecues or for the big game. So I'm really excited to have all of these great onion products just in my pantry or in my fridge. Some way to preserve, 3 different ways to preserve your winter onions. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate every single one of you from the bottom of my heart. It's just been amazing having people comment on my videos and subscribe. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you all again soon. Bye.